It's time to super screen the 2011 Breeders' Cup Classic. Hi, I am Travis with Horse Racing Nation and superscreener.com, bringing you some interesting findings as we count down the days to the 2011 Breeders' Cup from the super screening study that took authors Mike Schutte and Alex Zito through months of data, including 40 variables for 1,500 horses who started in the Breeders' Cup over the past 10 years. A massive undertaking of data and information, and what it does is it helps develop a criteria for each race to narrow down the field and toss vulnerable favorites and identify live long shots. If you want to hit the big scores, the super screener is where you need to be. So what do we find out about the Breeders' Cup Classic this year? Well, the big rule that we're looking at is always be closing. Always be closing. Closers have done extremely well in the Breeders' Cup Classic, extremely well. In fact, because of the larger field, an honest to fast pace is almost always expected, and therefore closers, who a lot of times in everyday racing throughout the country are sometimes up against it, in the Breeders' Cup, the races are honestly run and tend to help those who try and come from off the pace. Thus, those who want to try and wire the field or sit close to the pace, they really need a pretty good pace edge or track bias or a monster effort, and you just don't see those enough in the Breeders' Cup to really hang your hat on them over and over again. Here's some interesting data from the study. 6 of the past 8 winners of the Classic were closers. Pretty amazing statistics. 6 of the past 8 winners of the Breeders' Cup Classic were closers. And since 2001, when you talk about the Superfecta, more than half of the finishers in the Superfecta were closers. And then since 1999, this one is really interesting. Nearly 80% of the long shots who were 20-1 or higher in the Superfecta were closers. So if you're looking for long shots to round out trifectas and superfectas, you have to look at the closers. The history and the data tells you that nearly 80% of the time they're closers when they're 20-1 or higher. Last year, for example, Fly Down 27-1 rounded out the trifecta beneath Blame and Zenyatta. It was a very logical exacta, but with Fly Down rounding out the trifecta at 27-1, it boosted the trifecta payoff to $232. You can only imagine how many people had Zenyatta on their trifecta tickets. To get $232 out of a Blame Zenyatta exacta to a Fly Down try, simply awesome. In 2008, when Ravens Pass won the Breeders' Cup Classic at Santa Anita, the top 3 finishers were all closers. They were all 13-1 or higher, and the trifecta returned a monstrous nearly $2,400. And back in 2007 at Monmouth Park, when Curlin really stamped himself as the top horse in the country, Awesome Gem rallied for third at 28-1. Yielding a trifecta of $645. Simply put, you need to always be closing in the Breeders' Cup Classic, especially if you're going to make some money on the wagers. So who are the closers for 2011 that figure to be pretty big prices? First off, we got Rattlesnake Bridge, a developing 3-year-old who ran pretty well in the Travers this summer, certainly capable of picking up some pieces late in the race. There's Drosselmeyer, who ran pretty well last time in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He's got a lot of question marks, but at the same time, he ran well enough last time to be considered this time. We'll see what kind of price we get on Drosselmeyer. And there's Headache, who won the Hawthorne Gold Cup. Figures to be a very big price come Breeders' Cup Classic post time, one you want to watch from off the pace. And then there's the outside the box thought of Icebox, who right now is on the outside looking in, needs a couple of defections, should probably get into the starting gate should that all happen. Icebox, really going to be a big price in terms of long shot closers for this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Of course, this is just step one of many. The Super Screener comes with at least 10 rules for all the Breeders' Cup races, and if you want those rules for the Breeders' Cup Classic and all 15 of the races this year, head over to superscreener.com to get your copy. Good luck at the Breeders' Cup.